Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Senate President Escudero points to a demolition job after being linked to a contractor who cornered many state-funded flood control projects. Congressmen were quick on the draw. Don't look at us.
And Malacanang once again calls out Vice President Sara Duterte over her frequent travels abroad. The VP has a defense for that and her so-called habitual absence as a result of such trips.
And still on the palace, it is parrying criticisms over the campaign against corruption in flood control projects. The Marcos government says, better late than never.
Tila nagkakatotoo na yung sinabi ko nitong mga nagdaang linggo na mayroong demolition PR job na nakatuon laban sa akin upang tiyakin na maalis ako sa pwesto.
Sinisiraan ako dito sa Kongreso. Lahat kami tinatamaan, walang ganyanan, wag natin lalahatin.
Senate President Francis Escudero's top campaign contributor managed to secure big-ticket flood control government contracts. While Escudero admits Centerway's construction donated 30 million pesos to his 2022 election campaign, he says his involvement with the company ends there. The SP confirmed being longtime friends with Centerway's President Lawrence Lubiano. But Escudero insists he was never a business partner to Lubiano, nor did he help him corner government contracts. Lubiano's company was among the top 15 firms named by President Marcos on Monday as having cornered 100 billion pesos worth of flood control projects over the past 3 years. The Senate President explains most of Centerway's contracts were awarded before his return to the upper chamber.
Na palaging dinidikit at sinasabi porkit nag-contribute o nagbigay. Matagal ko ng kaibigan at kakilala siya at tumutulong talaga sa amin. Mula't mula pa, nung hindi pa iso to. At tubong sorsogon talaga siya.
Sana lang, SP, for the record, lahat nung nakuha niya nung time na senador na kayo, wala kayong tinulong sa kanya?
Wala akong kinalaman sa pag-identify, paggawa ng program of work, pag-bid, pag-award, pagbahay, pagbayad, pag-inspeksyon ng anumang proyekto sa pamahalaan, sa Sorsogon man o sa labas ng lalawigan ng Sorsogon.
Escudero also questioned why public scrutiny has zeroed in on his connection to Lubiano rather than on other contractors flagged by the president.
Bakit pinagtuunan ng pansin hindi yung mga mambabatas marahil o opisyal ng gobyerno na kontraktor? Hindi naman ako kontraktor. Hindi ako bahagi na anumang negosyo kaugnay sa construction o supply sa pamahalaan mula nung pumasok ako sa gobyerno noong 1998. Oo, dahil wala akong kilala na kontratista o supplier dito sa Senado. At pansin nyo, nilahad ng isang pahayagan na bakit tahimik, bakit nananahimik ang Kamara.
Escudero then went on to say that political forces in the House of Representatives are orchestrating a demolition job against him.
Tila nagkakatotoo na yung sinabi ko nitong mga nagdaang linggo na mayroong demolition PR job na nakatuon laban sa akin at tulad ng babala na isang kapwa ko senador na ito'y gagawin upang tiyakin na maalis ako sa pwesto at nang pag-final muli daw yung impeachment ay wala na ako dito.
Some House leaders are deflecting Senate President Escudero's accusation that the demolition job against him started at the lower chamber. Deputy Speaker Ronnie Puno said that personally, he has not heard anyone at the House malign Escudero. He then challenged Cheese to name names. As for House Committee on Public Accounts Chair Terry Redon, he feels alluded to by Escudero. That's because he heads the panel that will lead the investigation into flood control projects that includes 15 contractors named by President Marcos. Redon assured that they will be thorough with the probe.
Yung demolition job, siguro bangitin niya kung sino specifically. Masama yung pagka-blanket na sinisiraan ako dito sa Kongreso. Lahat kami tinatamaan, kaibigan ko si Senator Cheese. Kupati ba ako, nadamay na naman dyan sa akusasyon na yan. Walang ganyanan, wag natin lalahatin.
I think it's par for the course, no? Kasi ang totoo naman ho, syempre, talaga ho nga merong mga allegations ng legislator contractors, no? So I think very important ho, talaga na ma-address no pong mga pinapangalanan naman. So, we will respect his statement on the matter.
He earlier posed a challenge to Senate President Francis Escudero to name who in Congress is behind the demolition job against him. And joining us tonight is House Deputy Speaker and Antipolo 1st District Representative Ronaldo Puno. Good evening and welcome to the Big Story, Congressman.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Well, long time no see.
Yes, good to see you, Ces.
Bakit daw nananahimik ang House? That is what the Senate President is saying. And should it not be also incumbent then upon the House to name those who are associated with the top 15 contractors to wash their hands off this whole tit-for-tat accusations going between both houses?
Well, honestly, I think that's coming. I don't think there is no washing of hands here. In the Congress, we are all talking about this. In fact, we are going to begin consideration of the 2026 budget probably tomorrow when it's going to be delivered to the House. And, many of us have already agreed that before we go into deliberations on the 2026 budget, we are first going to go back to the 2025 budget and see, what went wrong here. We're going to review all the information that the President has put out in public. And we want to see who is responsible here. None of us want to be associated with anything that's negative or dishonest. No? So you can be sure that we're going to look for the people that are also responsible here.
So you will name names and give them an opportunity to explain themselves.
Well, yes. If the names come out, obviously we're going to ask them to explain themselves. We're going to give everybody a chance to explain whatever allegations are made against anyone. That is part of the process, and we're for sure going to do that.
So, ano bang PR? May PR effort talaga na? I guess supposedly a PR is being paid to spread these tales.
Well, honestly, I have no personal information about any such thing. I'm not the kind of person who engages in those kinds of activities. And I don't understand why anybody would do that at this point, because there's a lot of investigations going on. A PR work of that nature are not going to be helpful. In fact, they aggravate the situation because they create tensions sometimes where there are none. So I don't know. To be honest, I don't know anyone in the Congress that is or even suspected of doing anything of this sort. So it's very sad that Senator Cheese, who is a friend of mine, believes that some people in Congress are behind this. And if he has any real information on that, I hope that he would somehow get word to some of us here, or the congressmen that really do not believe in such activities being done.
But should we read more into this disclosure made by the President Monday, where he named all these 15 contractors? It's no secret, I'm sure, among politicians that Senator Cheese has connections with Lubiano. So parang pinakawalan niya in a way, to the public.
Since we are not in the business of trying to build criminal cases or anything of that sort against anyone, our job is to really review the expenditures and try to make sure that these expenditures are properly used. They are done honorably and honestly. So, obviously, in the course of a review of the budget, those issues are going to be important. But we do not look at them with the view of, going to any anti anybody, or even of filing cases or of anything of that sort, because that is the job of other people. Our job really is to look at this, find out what really happened, and make sure that the negative things don't happen again. And I think that's what exactly we're going to do.
Okay. Congressman Puno, if we could just kind of shift topic, you were in the headlines yesterday because you proposed a con-con. And as you probably know, Filipinos are generally very allergic to that term. You did make 5 proposals. The first one, of course, forthwith to change that word so as to not confuse anyone down the line in the future. Also, stuff on tax exemptions, presidential amnesty, term limits, as well as the construction or the members of the JBC. Are these the only 5 changes that you're looking to make?
I just cited those 5 instances as examples of why the Constitution needs updating and correction. Because these 5 instances here have resulted in a lot of litigation in the Supreme Court. But they're mainly, problems in terminology. They are due to a confusion between whether or not our legislature is unicameral or bicameral in that Constitution. We all know we are bicameral, but the wording in the Constitution does not recognize that. Many instances you're going to see a provision for voting of a certain way, which appears to be addressing itself to a unicameral body.
Party-less representatives, for instance.
Yes,
was meant for a unicameral system.
That's right. That's one of those. Well, again, there are many. I think if I had gone through all the individual examples, it would have been a very long speech. But I think that is something for a constitutional convention to look into. We all know that that the 1987 Constitution was premised on a unicameral legislature in the beginning. And then in the later parts of this, and this is what is related to us by the framers of the Constitution themselves, they say that there was a shift, a sudden shift to a bicameral legislature. And they addressed that particular clause in the Constitution. But I guess they forgot to update every other clause in the rest of the Constitution for time constraints or whatever. And they have remained there until now, for 48 years now. These inaccuracies, these contradictions have remained there. And of course, that needs to be corrected. We cannot live with this forever. It's going to continually confuse everyone and make all these processes very difficult. So that's what we are trying to do here.
But how do you plan to make it more palatable to everyone? Minsan at the very mere mention of con-con, everyone gets scared, propaganda starts spreading. Do you have a kind of a plan on how you're going to pull this off?
A constitutional convention is organized in 2 steps. The first step is the House and the Senate have to file a joint resolution which will be approved by 2/3 of each member, 2/3 of each House. So 2/3 of all members of Congress and 2/3 of all members of the Senate are going to have to vote in favor of calling for a constitutional convention. Once that is done, a law has to be filed and considered by both houses as to how this constitutional convention will be organized. Now, in the past 47 years, and with every president that we have had who has wanted to have a constitutional convention or some form of constitutional reform, we never got to the first step. Nobody ever got to a point where they needed to discuss what kind of form a constitutional convention would take. Now, I personally believe that when we come to our suggestions on how it will be formed, how it will be composed, that we will be able to find a suitable form that will, address the fears of everybody. So specifically, from the Senate, for example, there's always a negative response from them because historically, there's always been a suspicion that there will be an attempt to abolish the Senate if any convention at all is called. There's also been a suspicion that the term of office, for example, of the president and other national leaders are going to be amended to allow people to perpetually remain in office. Now, I think if we are going to find a way in the mechanics of that convention so that the Senate will be able to actively participate and decide on the issues there as if they were doing so on a constituent assembly basis, which is, they actually review and actually audit and veto everything that's going to be done there. They might agree to this. So Chief Justice Renato Puno has said that there may be room to consider a hybrid constitutional convention. The example he gave was maybe we can have some members who are elected and some members who are appointed. Now, I would go further, no? I think if we're going to start talking about a hybrid convention, maybe we can talk about a constitutional convention that mirrors our legislature, that mirrors the way we vote on things and the way we deliberate and decide them. Specifically, I might propose that we should have a constitutional convention with two chambers, an upper chamber and a lower chamber, similar to our Congress today. And I think if we go that route, we might be able to satisfy some of the doubts that people have with respect to how propositions are going to be considered. And of course, this will involve a lot of discussion, both with our representatives in the House and the senators that might be involved in this. I have heard that Senator Kiko Pangilinan has just taken over the Constitutional Amendments Committee in the Senate. We are very happy to hear that because, of course, Senator Pangilinan is an accomplished lawyer. He has been a legislator for long. And I believe that he is going to be able to help devise, if he wishes to, a constitutional convention that will assuage the fears, not just of the Senate, but of the people in general.
But Congressman, what was the initial reaction like from your colleagues at the lower house? And do you already see strong support building across party lines?
I think I'm seeing an open mind across the board now. To be honest with you, when I started discussing this idea, people thought I was not serious. I did not get very good reaction in the beginning. But after I think I started explaining everything, people started to have a more open mind about it. When I made that privileged speech in the Congress, I was surprised at the reaction.
You know, Congressman, because the nation has been debating pros and cons of procedural things. And I guess this has really opened the minds of people because there are obviously it's not unclear. The lack of clarity has led to this confusion and polarization, perhaps, you know?
Yes, I think so. And it's coming at a time when, and this was not intentional, by the way, it's coming at a time when, for example, the barangay elections are an issue. Until today, we are not sure whether there will be elections here or next year.
Yeah.
And of course, the laws have been passed. They're now waiting for a decision from the president. They can either be approved into law, they can be vetoed, or they can be allowed to lapse into law if the president does not do anything about it. But you know, that law increases the term of office of congressmen to 4 years. So many people are wondering where this is coming from. Everybody has either a 3-year term or a 6-year term. What is the point of suddenly giving them a 4-year term, which will now prevent a synchronized election for the barangays with any set of officials? So, and that is possible because of the failure of the Constitution to specify a term of office for barangays. Now, what's to prevent the 21st Congress from changing this once again? Because every single Congress has changed this since, I believe, 2011, you know. So, again, even with this new law changing the term, changing the dates of the election, there is no guarantee that this will last longer than 2 years. So this is the problem here. We are electing people who don't know how long they will remain in office, and the electors don't know when they're going to be able to judge these officials that they have elected and determine the accountability of these officials. So this is a sad time, but it's happening now.
How will you sell it to the Senate now nag-aaway kayo?
Yeah, and that is the other thing. You know, I was saying that, you know, this is not just me. Even Father Anilo Aquino of San Beda, who is a constitutional expert, has also said that, you know, this is probably the worst time when you see there is dissension and a competition, you know, acrimony between houses of the same Congress, you know. And normally, you know, this does not happen.
Yeah.
Only the first time, I think, in our history that there is this degree of animosity between the Senate and the House. And it's so sad. It's unfortunate that this is happening.
Well, baka kayo na pwede mag-repair. I mean, you served 2 presidents, is that correct? 2 or 3?
Well,
2 lang.
directly, yes. But I have been, since President Ramos, I think I have been in some role or whatever in the government.
If you want this to push through,
I hope that people will support this. I understand the misgivings that people have, the fears that they have, the suspicions about public officials always doing what is self-serving and contributes to their own future. But I think that there are enough people now. The 20th Congress is full of very young congressmen. I think that maybe in the reaction that I saw after the speech that I made in Congress, I think that people are beginning to have a wider view. They're beginning to I think, look at more things, not just the normal day-to-day that a congressman would look at, budgets and things like
but
that.
if I may interrupt, Congressman, you did not include political dynasties. Was that intentional, or are you?
Says that is a very difficult issue to be dealing with, and I think that maybe a constitutional convention is the one that should deal with that.
You would sell it better if you had put that in. No.
I don't think I would have come up with a final solution to that problem, and I don't want people to think that we are organizing this effort for a constitutional convention for specific amendments that we want to introduce. We do this so that there will be a platform, a vehicle.
Totoo yan, Congressman. Alam mo naman, we've passed. The reason why people are allergic is because there were, hidden agendas behind moves to amend the Constitution. There was even an attempt to do it by
People's Initiative.
People's Initiative, if you recall.
Yes, I believe last year. Well, the People's Initiative, I think, was basically an attempt to distinguish or at least determine whether voting in the legislature should be jointly or severally. So I think that was a direct threat, and a direct challenge to the Senate, I think. So that is why they responded in that fashion. They hit back hard.
Also during the time of FVR.
The
Yes.
Pirma Initiative.
Well, all of those earlier initiatives, they came very soon after our revolution of 1986. So people were still a little bit more simplistic then. They thought that, the way to change government and to get redress for their grievances was to go to the streets. I think after 40 years, people are a little more sober now. We realize that there are other ways of resolving our differences, other ways of moving forward in the things that we need to do. And that is good. And I'm hoping that that kind of spirit will enter into this discussion on the Constitutional Convention that we're going to
there is the suspicion that because Speaker Romualdez cannot win in a bicameral form of government, that you will form a unicameral government. There is that suspicion.
Where he will be Prime Minister,
Yes.
to be specific.
Well, I don't know if he would be able to do that with President Marcos still around in the first place. But, again,
Why not? What do you mean?
Well, there's seniority in the party and all of that. But, there will be those kinds of suspicions. And I understand that. It will be very difficult to convince people that the intentions for this thing are positive, and that what we want to do is provide a forum and a vehicle for people to actually address these issues that I think need to finally be addressed. Maybe there is a way in the mechanics of the Constitutional Convention that we will devise, in the hybrid form that we will put in place, that will prevent these kinds of matters coming into the order of business of the Constitutional Convention. I don't see why we cannot like precisely limit it once that law is filed, you know. And I intend to propose that law, this, in jointly with members of the Senate, hopefully, and with other members of the Congress. Maybe in determining the form and the extent of the Constitutional Convention, we can put in safeguards that will prevent all of these kinds of suspicion from coming through. If we can do that, I think there is a good chance this convention will happen. If we cannot, obviously, it's going to be an exercise in futility.
You're willing to try, put your energy behind it.
Oh, absolutely. I think really after so many years, in the government, I think this is something that has been a recurring problem with every administration, the difficulties in the Constitution. I think one day I'm going to start counting how many cases have been filed in the Supreme Court that emanated from an unclear provision in the 1987 Constitution, and there are many. But I think it's a worthwhile cause. And for myself, I think I need to go to the deeper causes of problems in our government and in our society beyond the normal, no? And I think this is something that has been very difficult to deal with. People have been afraid to touch it. And, the chances of success here are not great. But I think the challenge is good. And I believe I think right now I believe in the openness that people will be showing, that they have shown so far to me in Congress at least. And
We're running out of time, but one last question. What does the Makabayan Bloc have to say about it? Are they opposed?
I haven't frankly discussed this with them. I will be reaching out to them, obviously, and everybody else in Congress. I hope they will join us here. We're going to go to all parties of different persuasion in the House. And hopefully we will come up with a common stand. And then I will go to members of the Senate and reach out to them as well. And I hope as well that we will be able to convince them for the good of the people.
We thank you for talking to us. House Deputy Speaker and Antipolo 1st District Representative Ronaldo Puno.
Well, on to another story. Armed Forces Chief of Staff General Romeo Browner said that Chinese forces are taking on a new tactic, attacking our Coast Guard in the West Philippine Sea. Browner observed that gray ships or warships from China's People's Liberation Army are now being deployed to shadow or chase Filipino vessels in disputed waters. This is a development from the typical Coast Guard vessel attacks from China. Browner saw these supposedly aggressive tactics following Monday's incident at Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal. The AFP chief believes there was a deliberate intent to ram Philippine Coast Guard vessels patrolling near the shoal. The August 11 encounter at sea resulted in the accidental collision of a Chinese Coast Guard ship and a People's Liberation Army vessel.
Nagbago yung taktika ng China. Sa ngayon ay nag-deploy na sila ng ng kanilang PLA Navy, no? At isa itong simbolo ng pagiging agresibo ng China. They continue to claim Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal as their own territory. Hindi naman tayo pwedeng pumayag dyan. Kitang-kita doon yung aggressive na tactics ng China, no? Ang assessment natin doon ay yung PLA Navy ship ay talagang ang pakay niya, ang objective niya ay i-ram yung ating Philippine Coast Guard. Yun rin ang assessment ng ating Philippine Coast Guard.
Meantime, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Qian claimed that the PCG's move seriously infringed upon China's sovereignty, rights, and interests. Beijing said yesterday's incident in Bajo de Masinloc harmed peace and stability in the sea and proved once again that the Philippines' provocative actions are the root of tensions in the region. Browner slammed that statement, saying China cannot put the blame on Philippine forces who were only in the area to protect fishermen. The AFP and PCG plan to sit down with President Bongbong Marcos to discuss fresh counter tactics now that China is using their gray ships.
Sa ngayon, nandun na yung Navy nila. No? Ibang usapan na yun. So pag-uusapan po namin yung ating pwedeng gawing mga hakbangin at yung mga future na mga tactics natin upang kontrahin yung ginagawa ng China na ayaw tayong palapitin dun sa Bajo de Masinloc.
We're going to be taking a very quick break, but coming right up, Malacanang takes another swipe at the Vice President's overseas trips, claiming these travels are already causing frustration among Filipinos. The details when the big story returns. Stay tuned.
The big story is back with Kitty Duterte giving an update on the health status of her father. Former President Rodrigo Duterte is still in ICC detention at The Hague and is now awaiting his confirmation of charges hearing set for September 23.
Routine checkup. He is old and not exactly in the best shape, but he's okay actually. I expected him to be more frail, but he's not. He's doing well. He's even better as compared to the first few weeks inside.
Okay.
He's sounded more lively, more sharp.
Kitty also said the former president is looking for her mother, Hanilet Avancenia, who has been reportedly barred entry to the ICC detention facility. The ban was supposedly triggered by Duterte's lead defense counsel, Nicholas Kaufman. Meantime, Vice President Sara Duterte was asked about her father or her assessment of Kaufman's handling of her father's case. Here's what she had to say.
Hindi kasi ako pwedeng mag-explain para kay Attorney Kaufman sa kanyang mga preparations at mga ginagawa sa case ni former President Duterte sa ICC. Kasi siya yung pinili ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na lawyer. So we only follow kung ano yung choice ng client. Susunod kami and mag-cooperate kami kung anong kailangan ng legal team.
Meanwhile, Vice President Sara Duterte refused to confirm or deny former Senator Antonio Trillanes' claim that she and former Vice President Leni Robredo are good friends.
Dapat siguro si former President Leni Robredo ang maghatag og comment kay siya man ang kumbaga sa iyaha directed ang comments.
The VP was also asked about her alleged misuse of confidential funds, one of the grounds for her impeachment complaint. Duterte's trial is in limbo after the Supreme Court blocked it and the Senate voted to archive it.
Kung may kaso, sa tamang forum, mag-explain kami. Nagsabi kami noong nag-file sila ng articles of impeachment nila na ready ang defense team. Noong umakyat sa Supreme Court, yung kaso, lahat ng hiningi ng Supreme Court ay ibinigay namin. Pero hindi pwede na moro-moro na kung saan lang nagbibigay ng akusasyon at kung saan o kung kailan lang nila gusto mag-akusa ng tao.
The Vice President likewise blasted those that are saying she's been habitually absent given her overseas trips.
Hindi ko alam kung ano yung pinagsasabi nila na habitual absence. As I said, ito na naman yung style ng mga tao na anti-Duterte na nagbibigay lang ng akusasyon kung saan-saan at wala namang basihan, walang ebidensya. Alam nyo, ang akusasyon na walang basihan ay isang paninira lamang.
But for Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro, the Vice President's travels were not work-related.
Po-frustrate yung mga kababayan natin abroad dahil ang Pangulo po ay nasa Pilipinas, nagtatrabaho, inaayos yung mga problema at lumalaban sa mga anomalya at korupsyon. Samantalang ang Vice Presidente ay madalas na nasa personal trip at hindi po sagot ang pagbabiyahe para masolusyonan kung may problema man ang bansa.
Castro also criticized Duterte's statement that she will explain how she spent confidential funds only in the proper forum.
Hindi na darating ito sa impeachment proceedings kung naging maliwanag lamang ang kanyang pag-explain, lalo na ng kanyang mga tauhan na mula yata sa accountant hanggang kay Atty. Zuleika Lopez ay walang alam kung paano nagastos ang confidential funds niya.
And with that, let's see what Vice President Sara Duterte's next move will be from one of her lawyers. And welcome to the Big Story, Attorney Michael Poa, who is the spokesman for the VP's defense team. Thank you for coming to the show.
Good evening, Ma'am Ces. Good evening, Shawn. Good evening, Pauline. And good evening to all of your viewers. Thank you for having us.
Today, yet another motion for reconsideration was filed before the Supreme Court. So, how are preparations going for your reply to the Supreme Court?
Right now, that's what we're focusing on. It's really, as you know, the Supreme Court issued an order asking the defense, or actually the Vice President, to submit her comments on the motion for reconsideration that was filed by the House. So we have been working on it, and definitely we'll be able to file our comment within the 10-day period provided.
Wag naman 10 years.
Wag naman 10 days lang.
Pero yung mga ibang MR, you'll also take a look at what these are, or just the House of Representatives is the important one?
We are assessing that at the moment kasi ang kakabit ng MR are motions for intervention. No? And wala pa namang action yung Supreme Court if pagbibigyan o igagrant nila yung motions for intervention. So we are looking if tingnan natin kung mag-i-issue ng order ang court for us to also comment on their motions for intervention, or we might also consider just filing an opposition. Sa ngayon, that is still being discussed in the defense team. In fact, just this afternoon, we were talking about it.
Are you open, although this is just a wish, because of course the High Court will decide, the call is for them to hold oral arguments. Are you open to that?
We're open to anything. We're ready for that. In fact, noong we filed the petition, that was always a possibility. So that has also been discussed in the defense team. And definitely, we'll just abide by whatever the court orders us to do. If it's oral arguments, we're okay with it. If wala man and it's just by pleadings, we're also ready for that.
Are you hopeful that the court, well, it is said that it is highly improbable for the court to reverse itself, but not impossible.
I actually, personally, from our side, from the defense team side, we don't even want to say improbable or impossible because we feel that it's highly speculative. Anything can happen. So, sa atin ngayon, our focus is to really give a very comprehensive comment that addresses all the arguments na nailatag ng House of Representatives sa kanilang motion for reconsideration so that we can really present our position fully. And then we'll see what happens, no? So we don't really want to think about it as improbable or impossible, because again, anything can happen, and we just have to be ready to anticipate and be ready for whatever eventuality.
Ilan ba kayong legal minds dyan na, conferring?
The team is composed of 16 lawyers, but the
Put
number kasi
16 lawyers in a room and they will not agree that
they will have 20 opinions, di ba? No, but kasi medyo taken out of context when you say 16 lawyers. It's really because we also engaged Fortuna Verzosa Salazar, which is a firm. So it's really like engaging a firm. And you know naman in a firm, a whole team works on a certain case, especially a case as big as this. So most of the lawyers naman really come from Fortuna Verzosa Salazar. And there are 4 of us that are not with Fortuna Verzosa that have been collaborating with them. So it's been a good experience for us working with Fortuna Verzosa. It's been quite collaborative, and I think engaging a firm was the proper way to do it, because at least systems are already in place and it's easy to really coordinate with them on certain matters.
Are you also the same legal team? So the same 16 lawyers are the ones also handling the ombudsman case as well as the NBI case?
Not all. In terms of the ombudsman, the Fortuna Verzosa will also be collaborating with us. Initially, it was, for the ombudsman case, it was myself and Attorney Paul Lim, kasi kami yung nag-handle din ng DOJ case, DVP. So it really depends on the client. No? So
in the case of the ombudsman, it's just a referral. Is there an actual case that's been filed, or is this the same complaint that was given by the House of Representatives to the ombudsman?
Yes, it's the same. It's the same. Well, I wouldn't really say complaint, because what the House of Representatives were saying was nagbigay sila ng copy ng kanilang committee report. However, the ombudsman actually issued an order asking for those named respondents to submit their counter affidavits. So it seems like there is going to be an investigation, at least at a preliminary investigation, sort of. So that's what happened, and we've already submitted the counter affidavits of the Vice President along with the other respondents. In fact, I received information that either a day or two ago, some of the respondents already also received another order from the Ombudsman to submit their position papers. Dalawang kaso kasi yan, just so everyone understands.
Okay.
There's the criminal aspect and there's also the administrative aspect. So on the criminal aspect and also the administrative aspect, we've already submitted our counter affidavits. But I got information at least from some of the respondents, hindi pa kasi lahat nakakatanggap ng order, but that there is such an order for the administrative aspect naman, for those respondents to submit also their position papers.
Are you also representing the other respondents? These are the staff of the Vice President, right?
No, ma'am. May mga kanya-kanyang mga lawyers sila. I'm only representing the Vice President in this case.
But how does that work? Do you guys confer or talagang solo-solo na lang yung mga cases?
We don't, well, there is at least some coordination in terms of kung, for example, we need to get facts from another respondent. No? So may ganyang coordination. But naturally, hindi naman, it's not like a whole team that represents different people lang. We're really separate lawyers. No? And so if there's a need to confer, we know naman each other. But as far as like the way the defense team works and the impeachment team, hindi ganun yung dynamics. So it's really the lawyer that handles one client that works on that case lang. Walang intersection.
Okay.
Well, Attorney Mike, some critics say that the Supreme Court only ruled on the technicality, not really the merits of the case. So some people are wondering, how will the Vice President explain all these allegations, misuse of confidential funds? And the Vice President did say she will address it in the proper forum. What was she alluding to exactly in proper forum?
I'll start with the comments na it's really on a mere technicality. I just wanted to qualify that. It's a procedural aspect, but we shouldn't sort of say technicality in a way na nagkulang lang ng pirma sa papel or something like that, because the technicality that we're talking about here is the one-year bar, which is actually enshrined in the Constitution. No? It's part of the same article as the impeachment. But having said that, that's also the reason why in previous interviews, when I'm being asked, do you feel like vindicated or victorious, I was always consistent in saying that's probably not the right term. Because when we talk about vindication, you talk about the merits of the case. And aminin natin, wala pa tayo dun. No? So it's really the procedural aspect. Now, in terms of the proper forum comment, it's being actually addressed now. For example, the DOJ case, yung grave threat na nasa articles of impeachment, meron ding kaso na reklamo, rather, na naihain laban sa Vice Presidente, as well as inciting to sedition, which is pending with the DOJ, and we have been answering that. In fact, the Vice President even appeared when she submitted her counter affidavit. With the confidential funds, for example, there is a pending petition for review for the OVP confidential funds that is pending with the Commission Proper of COA. So we're addressing that there. And then, itong ombudsman that we just mentioned, and in fact, there was even another case, PNP filed against her, direct assault that was dismissed na. Yes, it was dismissed na sa ano naman yun, prosecutor's office sa Quezon City. So there are, and again,
there are
let's not forget,
institutions you're saying where she is
addressing these issues. But let's not forget, in terms of the impeachment, it's really just a one-year bar. Kung sakali mang hindi ma-reverse, it's a one-year bar. So if you're asking me, is it possible na magkaroon ng second round by Feb 6, 2026? That's definitely a possibility, and that's also something that we're preparing for.
I mean, Vice President Sara Duterte did say she wanted a bloodbath. Is that still her stance if this does go to the second round in February next year?
I don't want to put words into her mouth, especially now that I'm not her spokesperson anymore. But I would like to say that she has always been consistent, not just in public, but even with the legal team, that she wanted to go to trial. She always said, mag-trial na tayo. But sa amin, syempre, we had to really defend the rights of our client. And when we saw what happened in February, at least the process on how the impeachment complaint was initiated, we really felt that we had to bring it up to the Supreme Court.
Does she listen to you guys? Like, I can imagine her like conferring with 16 attorneys. Like you said, 16 attorneys equals 30 opinions. How does that dynamic work? Give us an insight without giving
and
up
I
too
was
much.
curious, before you answer that, attorney, you said that, sige, let's go. What, did she have that frame of mind talaga in talking to the lawyers
Yes.
before, yeah?
Oo, and very directly, sinabi talaga niya that she's ready to go to trial. By that time, we already also filed the Supreme Court petition. But, I mean, let's not siguro confuse the readiness to face these allegations with the willingness to be subjected to an unconstitutional process. So that's where at least the defense team is coming from. And then your question on how, I think we're
dynamic
forgetting that
works.
she's also a lawyer herself.
Correct.
So
Oo nga.
it's
So
actually,
that's another opinion.
Yeah, kaya nga naging 30, sabi niya kanina 20 lang. Dinagdagan ko ng 10.
but to be honest, it's been easy. Kasi, you know, when you have, with our other clients, for example, you really have to explain. But pagdating naman sa kanya, when we talk about strategy, of course, she's always consulted on strategy. She's very hands-on. So when we talk to her, yung first step mo lang, nakikita na niya kung saan ka papunta. So it hasn't been difficult, to be honest.
Is the Vice President, does the immunity from suit of the President extend to the Vice President? What is your belief, Attorney?
Well, that's our theory. In fact, there is a case that we also filed sa RTC level on that. But what's certain is
What
when
is
it
this
comes
case?
to, it's a case for declaratory relief that we filed, asking the court to declare that she is in fact immune from suit.
Oh, I see. When was this?
Matagal na to. This was, I think, back in December, if I'm not mistaken.
And wala pang...
Wala pa, but proceedings are ongoing.
And the OSG has... Who has...
Yes, OSG is the one respondent na sumasagot.
Okay.
But at least in terms, our position is that in terms of criminal proceedings, that will come with prescribed penalties na may accessory penalty of removal from office. Hindi pwede yun. And I think that's established na in jurisprudence kasi impeachable officer siya. So
only when those crimes, offenses are involved, na merong removal from office.
definitely yon, I think that's well established. At least that's our view of jurisprudence. It's well established na pag may kasamang removal from office, hindi pwede yon because
Kasi
you will do
kumbaga
it
you're
indirectly what you
skirting
cannot
the
do
impeachment
directly.
process.
Opo, yon.
Kasi minsan may nagsasabi na,
Pero-
before we continue, di ba may nagsasabi kasi na, marami naman siyang ways tanggalin, hindi lang impeachment. And I guess they're referring to those. Pero your
Or
belief is...
pwedeng makulong. I mean, if it's a non-bailable offense.
Non-bailable offense, pwedeng makulong, but if that offense, kasi pag non-bailable, usually, ano na yan above 6 years na yan, above what we call prison correctional. So that will definitely come with the accessory penalty of removal, disqualification from office, etc. So yung mga ganong offenses, at least, again, this is my view, from my reading of jurisprudence, hindi na pwede. And in fact, in the Supreme Court decision, the subject Supreme Court decision on the impeachment, that was reiterated by Justice Leonen, di ba? May portion doon on immunity.
So that is another dead end if the aim was to, put the Vice President out of
Office.
commission was the word. Well, yeah, no, mali nga, out of office.
Out of office.
Or
out of office.
even to pay for the alleged offenses that she has committed.
Well, it's not a dead end because it doesn't mean na because you cannot file a case against an impeachable officer. I would rather use this in the general sense, not just the Vice President, because she is my client and I am an advocate. So I'd rather be neutral on that part. But against all impeachable officers, it doesn't mean hindi mo sila pwedeng kasuhan. Hindi mo sila pwedeng kasuhan habang nasa office sila kasi impeachable officers sila. But once they're out of office, when their term ends, for example, you can file these criminal cases naman against them in terms of accountability, I think. That's what you're driving at.
Right. But so this would disprove also that the ombudsman has been sitting on this because the allegation is that the ombudsman, the previous ombudsman, we're still looking for a new one, was an appointee of her father and so was sitting on these cases.
On the contrary, at least on the part of the defense, we didn't feel like it was being sat on because ang bilis when they filed that committee report, I think I got the news that they filed the committee report and then, if I'm not mistaken, less than a week, so a few days after, naglabas na kaagad ng order for us to file our counter affidavit. So we definitely did not get a sense that they were sitting on anything.
So yung mga delays lang is because we still don't have a new ombudsman for now, I suppose.
I can't comment on that because I also, as I've said, I have gotten information that some of the respondents also received a new order naman to submit position papers. So, in fairness to the Office of the Ombudsman, I really do not think there is any intention to delay proceedings.
Do you fear that the next ombudsman will be even harder on you?
I would like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and whoever it would be, I think let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they would be fair, whoever the personalities are in terms of those involved.
Do you feel, well, I'm treading on territory where you may not answer, but politics is really behind all of this.
We've heard all the views. It's very difficult for me to answer because I was also part of DepEd, for example. So I personally felt how things were. No? But I don't want to, now that we are talking about the impeachment, for example, in all these cases, I think on our part, I would rather just, pag may kaso, whatever the motive is behind it, basta sagutin lang natin yung allegations, diba? Now, if it is politically motivated or something like that, siguro iwan na lang natin sa mga kababayan natin. Everyone's been so participative, everyone's watching, so I'm sure they have their own opinions. Iwan na lang natin siguro sa kanila.
All right, attorney.
Okay.
No, I think you parang, okay.
Okay, it's a nice,
Hindi, we're
we'll
being
leave it at
signaled na. Baka mag-rally na yung next show. So we thank you for being with us. That was Attorney Michael Poa, spokesman of Vice President Sara Duterte's legal team.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Well, moving on to another story, Malacanang has reiterated the president's call for the public to report anomalous flood control projects in their areas. The call also extends to public officials. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro cited as an example Pasig Mayor Vico Soto, who immediately reported questionable projects in his city. Castro also urged Senator Panfilo Lacson and Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong to personally report what they know to the president. Lacson and Magalong have recently been vocal about alleged corruption in government projects, with Magalong claiming at least 60 lawmakers to have benefited from flood control projects.
Idiretso na po nila to sa Pangulo kung meron silang particular na pangalan na alam at para po mas mabilis ang pag-iimbestiga. Welcome po lahat yan. At bigyan lang po nila ng kompletong detalye. Sabi nga po ng Pangulo, ayaw naman po nila tayo ng palasyo, ayaw naman po natin magkaroon ng witch hunting na kahit wala pa pong ebidensya.
Meantime, in an interview with our sister show Storycon, Yusek Castro was asked about Marcos's moral ascendancy to fight corruption in government projects. That's given the history of his family and allegations of graft and corruption against them. The Palace press officer only had this to say.
President Marcos Jr. is different from his mother, from his father. He is trying to give this legacy, fighting corruption, so let us just give him the chance. Ito na siya eh. He's working on this.
And in other news, PLDT Incorporated reported a 3% or almost 3 billion peso rise in gross service revenues in the first half of 2025. In all, the telco giant's gross service revenues totaled 106.3 billion pesos. Net consolidated service revenues, meanwhile, held steady at 91 billion, while data and broadband grew by more than 1 billion pesos. Consolidated EBITDA grew by 3% to more than 55 billion pesos in the same period, with the EBITDA margin remaining steady at 52% despite pressures from rising costs. So while the core income got lower by less than 1 billion compared to the same period last year, overall it edged up year-on-year at 17.6 billion. One key player in this sustained growth is Maya's fueled growth and profitability during the second quarter. As of end June, Maya's bank customer base jumped 101% year-on-year, with deposits rising to 50.4 billion pesos or 54% on the year. Just in Q2, Maya posted net income of 582 million, a 60% increase compared to Q1, and a strong turnaround from the 739 million peso net loss in the second quarter of 2024. Maya remains the #1 merchant acquirer in the country, leading in both card payment processing and QRPH person-to-person merchant payments.
All right, and that's all the time we have this Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching The Big Story.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We'll be back here tomorrow at 7:30. See you then. Have a good night, everyone.